Hello fellow Scratchers, I'm Griffpatch and today we are adding vertical scene switching to our classic platformer game. Yes, that not only means you'll be able to walk off the left and right hand edges of the screen, but also the top and bottom edges too. This allows us to build much larger, more exciting, multi-dimensional levels. Not only is this super useful for platform games like this one, but also for RPGs or other games that you might like to have a go at coding. Oh yeah, the same basic code can be used for both. Right though, before we begin, just quickly make sure to save your projects as a copy and name it Episode 6. Okay, let's get scratching! We need to begin by expanding our level scenes. Click into the level sprite. Now you'll remember that the scene switching is coded around each costume being named scene, and then a number. As we move across the level, we go from scene 1 to scene 2, then scene 3, and so on. Now, I want to add a new scene, not to the left or right, but directly above scene 1. What we can do is use the number square technique by saying each upward movement doesn't add a 1, but adds 100 to the scene number. That would make the scene above scene 1 as scene 101. Then the scene to the right of scene 101 is of course 102, then 103, and so on. Okay, so duplicate the costume for scene 1. And I'm going to flip it upside down for now to match up with the scene below. But you can draw this in any way you like. Cool. Then go to down and make it look great. I'll add a walkway here. Now don't forget to name this new scene. This is the scene above scene 1, so adding 100, that's scene 101 with a capital S. Now, with the scene drawn and named correctly, we need to code up this new scene change. Click into the player sprite and scroll down to the When I Receive Show Tick Last script. This is already handling the player moving off the left and right hand sides of the screen. It makes sense then to extend it to look for movements off the bottom and top too. But look, this costume block, begin scene hash, only has an input for an X position. We are going to need a Y position for this to work. Right-click on the block and we'll edit it. Change the text label from X to be X and Y. And then add a new numeric input, naming it Y. Okay, so the Y inputs should be blank. And that's the way we are going to keep them, so don't fill in a value even of 0. More on that in a moment. So duplicate the two if block stacks and pop them right below. We need to adapt these for changes in Y position rather than X. So remove the X position blocks, and in their place use the Y position block. The maximum height of the screen is different to the width. It's 180 pixels from the middle to the top edge, so we look for Y bigger than 180. That is off the top of the screen. Mirror that below with a check for Y position being less than -180. Scene hash +1. No. Now we move up a scene, we do as we said we would and add 100 to the scene. Then for the down script, use -100. That leaves the X and the new Y inputs. Well, the X ones we can blank out as we don't want to change the player's X position when moving up or down a scene. But we do want to change the Y position. When we move off the top of the screen, we must position our player back at the opposite edge, so a new Y of -180. And for moving off the bottom, a new Y value of 180. So that's the theory, we just need to modify this begin scene to make it work. Here's the set X block. But now this X input may be blank. We need to be careful not to change the X when this is the case. If X is greater than blank, then set X to the X input. Good. Now we can do the same for the Y inputs by duplicating that if block, switching the X inputs for Y inputs, and making sure to use the position block, set Y to, and pop in the Y input. Okay, nearly there. Scrolling down a touch, do you remember this very useful custom block we created? Fix collisions in direction. The direction at the end is important here. When moving scenes left or right, the 0 allows Scratch to look up and down in case the player is stuck in the ground after the change of scene to get them free. In the case where we change scene by moving off the top or bottom of the screen, we don't want to search up and down for collisions, but instead left and right. We'll use an if-else block. Pop a fix collision block in each. And then grab the x is greater than block from up here, and we'll use that as the condition. When we are setting an x position, we want to search up and down as normal for a collision, so leave that one as is. But otherwise, we'll assume this is a change of scene up or down. So replace the second 0 with a 90 degrees. That will search first to the right and then to the left to get us out of collisions. Perfect. Shall we dance? Smash the green flag. And up we go. Jump, jump. Oh, no. Oh man, let's try that again. If I can just time it right. Oh, it's a bit tricky it turns out. But the good news is, without thinking about it, the scene is of course switching correctly up and down, so that's really great. Oh gosh, come on. I just need to hold right as I wall slide to keep attached to this tricky right wall. Yes, there, phew. Little celebration. Now, question. What happens if I walk off to the right? Ouch! It's scene 102, but of course we haven't yet designed that costume, so the costume stays on scene 101 and we get trapped in the wall. I think we know what to do though, right? Click into the level sprite and we'll duplicate scene 101. The numbering is not quite so automatic anymore, since we have introduced the new 100s. It appears as scene 6, but we want this to be scene 102. That's one to the right of scene 101, of course. I'll do my flip horizontal trick, repositioning the entire scene in the canvas, then making sure to unselect all the graphics. Let's give that a test. I'm holding my breath for this climb. Oh, cool, I think I've got the hang of it now. And then off to the right, we have scene 102. Success! Indeed. We can switch back and forth between scenes 101 and 102 with ease. Perhaps I could drop down to scene 2. Oh, bother. I added a roof to scene 2, so that's problematic. As you can see, you do have to think your levels through a lot more carefully when you add in up and down scene changes too. We can just quickly adjust scene 2, pulling back the roof to leave a gap. Now, test, 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 test. Here we go. And drop down. Woohoo! Super! Now everything is pretty good here. It wasn't the hardest change to add because luckily we'd been quite forward thinking and most of the ideas were already in place from episode 2. Before we finish this small episode though, can I just suggest one small change to our vertical scene changes? Let me just re-architect scene 3 to add a nice vertical wall jump area, making heavy use of holding the Alt key to drag in a new duplicate of an existing shape. Now I'm going to duplicate the entire scene costume, naming it scene 103, so it's directly above the previous scene. And then I'll flip it vertically. Now I'll clean it up. I want to keep the wall jumping area in the same place. Great. Now watch this. If I get to the area on the level, and now jump up here. Oh, I do love this wall jumping. What you should notice is that when I jump onto the new screen, I'm often very close to the bottom and can slide off really quickly back to the previous screen. This is okay, but it does make the game a bit fiddly. You may prefer, like me, to actually move the player a little further up when they enter the scene above. And it's easy to do. Click into the player sprite and find the When I Receive tick Last script. Here is where the player moves off the top of the screen. So instead of positioning us down at minus 180, that's really low down, swap that for, say, minus 160. That's 20 pixels higher up. Let's see if we can see the difference. Jumping up here, Yeah, so now as we enter the next scene, our player is positioned just a little bit higher up, giving us more time to wall jump again and see what's going on. I think that's better. Don't you? Well, okay then. So this is a shorter episode, not so much to cover, but there is plenty more to come very shortly. But before I close, I'm going to just come back to my Scratch profile and show you a few of the amazing projects that have been submitted to the Classic Platformer Studio from the previous episode. Okay, so here we are in the Make a Classic Platformer Part 5 Studio. And oh my goodness, look at all of these projects. There are so many. My goodness, you've been involved in this. It's really great. So let's go for the very first one in the studio. So this is by Jensen6677. Okay, ooh, funky. I like this. Let's play. Wow, look at this. You have already tried to make moving platforms. Wow, it looks like I'm sitting down on that. That's rather cool. Okay, there'll be a lot more on that coming in a few episodes' time. Whoa, yeah, and we'll fix that, so don't worry. Oh, look at this. This is really cool. Go on, yes. Ew, it's a bit freaky. This is a really good level. It goes on and on. Yep, this is it. I found the end. Right, in that case, let's go and explore somebody else's project. Okay, now going to the top. This is the last one that's been submitted. Part 5 scripts. Oh my goodness, look at that. Some really freaky thing going on here. Look at the background, it's all like glowing and like lightning and rotating very slowly. But I love the, is it just me or is the actual level itself changing? It is! The level is throbbing as well. Oh, that's so crazy. Oh, that's great. Oh, right. Oh, nice. I love this level. Oh, it's working really well. Oh, no, it's at the end. No, there's more. Up, yay. Wall jump time, brilliant. Oh, this is, don't go here. I don't believe that at all. I'm going there. Yeah, didn't trick me. Oh, I think I've done it. It can't be 91 levels. 90, it's a timer. But I've reached the end. I feel like I should have won. So let's have a look. Any more we can have a look at? This project's by Turquoise Man 5. Oh, it's got a story. Where am I? I must go to my house. Please help me. Do you want the health bar in the game? Yes, I do. Look at this lava. I'm going to add a lava like that in the next episode. Somebody's... Oh, whoa. Okay, it's getting a bit tricky this. Oh, no. No! Oh, man, I'm dissolved. Try again. Oh, it's just... Oh, come on. I did this last time. No. Oh, looks like it. Oh, my goodness. Just jump. There we go. I must go to my house. Oh, no. Well, I'm not going to get there now, am I? Okay. 1 health left. I mustn't die. Okay, I'm getting there. Right. Okay. Jump up. No! Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Okay. What's happened there? Oh! Let's see. Let's have another one. Oh, look. A bunny. Here we go then. Oh, cute. Oh, look at the animation. It's amazing. Okay, you guys are way ahead. Look, you've got lava. What happens if I die in this one? Oh, it's not lava. It's happy. It's all good. Right. Wall jump. Yes. Go, bunny. This is brilliant. I love the animation. Oh, no. That's okay. I can't die. It's not lava. I keep thinking of that previous game. I love the skipping. That's brilliant. Here we go. Oh, yes. Oh, no. I ran out of level. I feel like there should be more. I also like the background in this one. That really adds to it. Okay, let's see what else we can have. What looks tempting? Anything tempting? Platforming resource mobile. That sounds clever. Go on in. Let's have a look. I assume that means there's... Yeah, look. Someone's added click support. Which one should we try? Oh, look. Let's do this one. It really got some little snow effects. Yes, I love the snow. Look, it's coming down. Oh, well done, Scratcher 99M. I like the sun effect too. The kind of haziness. It's really pretty. Come on, let's jump up here. This also reminds me of a movie. I have seen it. I very much enjoyed that scene. Where has it gone? Okay, wow, this cat's super fast. Let's go. Oh no, I put my head on this text. I feel like I should be reading this, but I'm just going so fast that I don't feel... Oh. Okay, I'm not going so fast now. Oh, it's a bit harder because that bit of text. I'd go down here. I knew it. I'd have done the same. Go. Oh, tricked me again, it said, and it's right, it did. How cunning of you. There's some text there. Back to front. Oh, you genius. I'm glad you guys can get ahead and do these things. This is really exciting. I wonder if you've done it the same as I'm going to do it. Oh, what's this? Look, we found a crown. It's a hologram. Oh no, it's a hologram. But the crown was back there. What are you doing? I don't know. Oh, water kills me. That's a bit harsh. I like this. I like this turn of events. So much more. Oh, Egypt. I feel harsh that water kills me though, because I guess cats don't really like water, do they? How far does this go? I hope I'm going to reach that scene from the thumbnail. I do feel like it's deep. Yes, this is it. This is the scene. It reminds me of that scene. What movie was it? Anybody remember? Put it in the comments. Is this real? Oh, that No! Oh my gosh, what's going on? Oh no. Scratchy! I can't help but click on this Scratch Cat platformer. Look at that. It's a beautiful blue level, and it's all contained, which I really rather like. In which direction I need to go in. It's like a maze. Oh, look, it is a maze. It's trapped in this maze. Work out which direction to go in to get out. Aha! I didn't take the bottom route, which is very lucky because I would have been stuck. A very tight wall jump. Oh yes, that was fun. And oh no! Uh-oh. Oh dear. I think that's the end. That was my white icon scratch. Well done. Very fun. Okay, that is it for today. Please do smash the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel because the next episode is coming close on this one's heels and you are not going to want to miss it. These videos remain free, but if you are a loyal fan or an educator, then please consider joining the channel membership to help support me in making these cool videos. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great week ahead and scratch on, guys.